Welcome back, everyone, for another epic night. Thank you for joining me. It's another God evening and another night where we get to talk and get into the things that will be intriguing, fascinating, interesting, and hopefully make you open up the book yourself and look up yourself. And as always, tonight you know what we're here to do. Attack the liar. Truth over the lie. God over the devil. The light over darkness. So, how's everything been with you guys? For one, I would like to say that every day that we have is a blessed day. Another day that we have to be able to right some of our own wrongs. And if you are alive to hear this today, you are blessed. And you have an opportunity. So, with that said, let's get into it. So, what I want to chop up about today, I was looking at this recent Gunplay interview. And that was kind of very interesting to me because I remember Gunplay, not personally, I don't know him personally, but I remember his music when he came out with Rick Ross. I remember when, he was doing the thing with Maybach Music, and this he might have been hot around, 2011, 10-ish, somewhere back then. I remember when I first seen him, very noticeable, you know what I'm saying? Paid attention to him, quickly, and he appeared to definitely be a soldier for Rick Ross. He appeared to be, one of his guys that was definitely an enforcer and someone who kept him, held his name up on high, and no matter what situation. I remember following his career, and I remember when I got disconnected, so now to look later on in the future and see this interview and see what he's saying was a little disappointing, a little, unfortunate, I feel that tale of brothers being loyal to something that they don't understand that they being loyal to, and in the end getting the short end of the stick is nothing new. This has been going on all the way back, so this is nothing new. But it still, nevertheless, I'm watching the interview and it seemed, a little hard feeling like, man, damn. You know what I'm saying? You talking about you had to go back to the street, you know what I'm saying, to rob or whatever like that. You never got put on. In every situation you kind of got cheated, you feel. It was just so much impactful stuff in that interview. And for it to be the person that was in the interview, again, from what I remember of Gunplay is being a loyal soldier, you know what I'm saying, a ride or die. So much to the fact that I remember back in the days that there was a video of him being knocked out on the ground, cold, You know what I'm saying? In a very dangerous, compromised situation. You know, around goonish type guys that, you know, situations like that is when you know there's a law and that there's still some type of protection, even though you probably wouldn't want to be knocked out. But yeah, still some type of protection because once, you know, once if you lose consciousness and you knocked out, a guy could kick your brain into the concrete. So even in a situation like that, you know, God is still present and still protects us. But not to get off the subject, I remember him sitting knocked out, laid out in the street, and obviously it was from a situation where he was defending Rick Ross. I'm not here to judge this situation. I'm just making note of what I witnessed, you know, watching, you know, their career and what it seemed to be like a brotherhood on this television. So when I got disconnected, I thought about it. I said, like, how did this happen? Like, why did this happen? You know, like, you know, this guy should have, you know, kind of been okay. You know, this was one of the loyal soldiers. So then I thought, what made me get disconnected from him? I thought about the cocaine usage, the proud cocaine usage. He had like one of those DVD videos back in the days, and the brother was doing a lot of coke right on the video, and you know, just like it was okay or cool. And I knew right there that was a recipe for disaster, you know. And I also remember thinking at the time, how is Rick letting this guy, is Rick Ross letting this guy do this? How is this even possible? You know, how would he let this guy be reckless like this? So I also thought about this, you know. How many people have I had under me that's been reckless that I couldn't control, you know, and even to this day can't control? They do what they want to do. So I could understand that. But then I look at the situation, I remembered other situations that he had where he was on camera pulling out a gun on somebody, looked like robbing someone for something, you know. I'm sure that was Rick that got him out that situation. So then I'm like, whoa, this is a little bit more complicated, and I'm thinking about it more. Who beat up DJ Vlad? Was it that something that stemmed from that situation? You know, that from what I remember back then, it was Gunplay who initiated the beating, if I'm wrong, you know, allegedly. But allegedly, I think it was Gunplay that initiated beating him down. That ended up in a big, huge, I'm not sure of the number. I've heard up to 500,000, you know, something like that. I heard it was a lot of money that was kicked out for that mistake. At some point, you know, it also seemed like, you know, you started making independent moves. It seemed like Gunplay started, I remember, I think, was it Love and Hip Hop? One of those shows or something. That could, you know, become a confused situation at some point, you know. So I'm just thinking now, and I'm putting it all together. Why would this what he sees as betrayal happen, and he just get left out there? Shout outs to Gunplay. Like I said, I don't know Gunplay. I was following his career from the time he came out with Rick Ross. Shout outs to Rick Ross. Our history. Ross, if you're looking at me or you've seen me and it's been itching you, I know this guy. Where do I know him from? Many years ago, when you first came out, you came to New York and you came to a really hot spot in New York that was in Queens called the Outside Sports Bar. Where they have big shows and all of that. They're big shows, big screen TV, very nice place. You know exactly what I'm talking about. While you was there, you had a security team that was in charge of your safety while you was at the location. That's why my face is so familiar to you. I don't have to cap, to none of y'all or anybody. I would never even tell my life. Well, no, I'm going to start incorporating it, but I won't never tell any details of people I've protected in their personal business. That's just, I'm not with that. So I do, I have met Ross. Didn't seem like a bad guy, at all, So like I said, this is not to judge anyone. I'm talking about, and outlining from what I see. So now, I do see Ross come back and do his response. The laughter and the smiling a little bit, Ross, when you're dealing with a guy that's supposed to be your brother and your friend, that was overboard. I do feel, what I'm saying, that's my opinion. The smiling and the laughing in your homeboy face and tell him, oh, get back to the street. I don't know what's in the personal relationship or what happened between you guys that y'all not telling us, but if it's just what y'all telling us, why do money and lucre keep messing up, brothers? This has been going on all the way from Cain and Abel. Why do we allow money to keep getting involved with us? And, we got to do better than that. We have to figure out a way where we don't let the illusion of money and the deceit of being rich come between a real relationship that God has given us from God. That's with our brothers. So I watched Rick laughing and smiling a little bit, making his response. It seemed a little harsh, but again, now when I look at it, I could easily see that, I could easily see when I really look at the situation that Gunplay became a liability. He became a liability, how maybe many number one soldiers do. He might have, found his usefulness used up. When he was making the moves with the drugs, making the move with guns on camera and stuff like that, beating people up, getting lawsuits, that's, when all that stuff started adding up, it seems like people, make a decision to disassociate themselves. But I think it could have still been done in more compassion, Gunplay, it reminds me of a lot of my guys that I came up with, that, love me and probably, probably to it the same way, loyalty was with him. So now, because of that, because he reminds me of my friends from the past, and, makes me think about them, which are mainly all dead, unfortunately. I try to think, could I have made better decisions in my own personal life that might have weighed out in better decisions in their life? Because you see, that's what a leader, that's what a boss responsibility is, a little bit. No, not a little bit, a lot of it. The captain is responsible for his team. You know what I'm saying? They're responsible for the safety of everybody upon board. Now, with that said, I really brought this story up because, as always, it's the latest gossip. And I did like the interview. It was heart touching. But how do I ultimately care about other men's business and what went on? I care. I could care less. Now, with that being said, what do I really want to talk about? So, the story is relevant. As I said, I'm going to make this intriguing. I'm going to make this fascinating. I'm going to make this so illustrious that you are going to want to go get your Bible, open up and look and search for these stories. So, let's talk about a loyal soldier. A loyal soldier. So, you guys know King David, right? Sure you do. You all heard of King David, right? One that was very close to God's heart. God even considered David a friend. The story of David is epic. We have plenty of time to go deep in all of these stories. But, as I said, I'm going to make it fascinating where you don't have to wait for me. You could go open it up yourself. Now, David had a general. David had a general by the name of Joab. Now let me tell you about Joab. Joab was a strong soldier. Joab was the hand of the king. Joab had won many victories for the king. Joab had brought victory for the whole kingdom. For many, many, many years, he was the right hand to the king. Now, Joab was a very violent man. Joab was a very stern man. Joab was built a little different. Sounds familiar? Now, it came a point where Saul, remember Saul? Saul had a general. And after Saul's death, David wanted to make peace with the general, to bring peace within the kingdom. Unfortunately, the thing about certain strong soldiers is that they don't always agree with the king. And sometimes some of them think that they know best. Usually they always think they're physically stronger than the king, or have more might than them or something like that. It usually works out like that. But they don't always agree with the king. So David wanted to make peace with the general of Saul's army. But what did Joab do? Joab, when Saul general came to meet with David, Joab cuts him off, meets him, and tells him to go talk with him on the side and sneakily kill him. Because he didn't trust him. And he didn't necessarily agree with the king. Later down the line, David gets into a war with his own son. Oh yeah. No, not Solomon. Solomon's older brother. David had made an order that no one is to kill my son. Please, don't kill my son. Don't kill him. What does Joab do? Being the non-trusting, serious soldier that he was. So Joab kills the son of David, David's oldest son, after David had put the order not to kill his son. Again, non-trusting Joab thought he knew the best for the kingdom. Now, let me tell you what's interesting about Joab. Joab never becomes a king. He never becomes rich. He just always was the hand of the king. And the strongest he ever was is why he had remained the hand of the king. David grew old, and Solomon was getting ready. They all had taken the king. Before David was to give up the ghost, he told Solomon, make sure you double back and go kill Joab. Did you hear what I said? Yeah. David told Solomon, his son, make sure that this dude don't be able to lay his head to rest in peace. Joab had been loyal. Joab won most of the Israelite wars up under the reign of David. What went wrong? What happened? What happened to where David himself saw Joab as a liability? I say this story because it's a very interesting story that affects many of us and something that we all should keep in mind. There's been many, I could go throughout the Bible and point to so many situations that would resonate to you extremely similar to the story of Joab and King David. Bottom line is that it's a pattern that you will be able to clearly see that doesn't work out for those who are soldiers was 1 to 10. It usually doesn't work out for them when they get old. When they get old and they get compromised, they're killed. David ordered the assassination to be taking place on Joab, his own general that had for many, many years brought victory. Hopefully I just put that together, and that not just for Gunplay. You watching that situation actually reenacting many different situations, not even the ones on just television. Most likely in your own life, you seeing that same situation work out. Who must we be loyal to? We must be loyal to God. Let me give you a little something to that. How do you know that you have love for God? And what is being loyal to God? Wait. To know that you have the love for God is to love your brother as he is yourself. And to love your brother how God has loved you. With the greatest thing, according to scripture, that a brother could do is give his life for his other brother. The scripture says that a life was given for all of us. With that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tonight. I tried to make it intriguing as possible. I tried to give it a little jazz. Try to tell you these stories. The story I just told you was epic. Epic. Remember, Joab, David, King David. Joab, loyal soldier. Only to, in the end, murdered by the king. Because he had grew to be a liability. Saw too much, knew too much. Are you going to make yourself a liability following the wrong king? Remember, everyone, as always, wanted to see you guys tonight. I was actually going to turn it in, but I said, gotta keep it going, gotta stay consistent. And fight the liar. Because the liar doesn't sleep. The liar doesn't take no break. The liar don't go to the club. And the liar is constantly working on one thing and one thing only. And what do you think that is? Have you guys not been listening to me? Have I not been giving it to you? What is the one thing you trying to steal, destroy, and kill. And the open door to that is the lie. As I said, guys, crack the book. The Joab and David story is more amazing than Game of Thrones. You guys like Game of Thrones and all that stuff blows that out. Crack the book. And remember, the night will soon come to an end, and the sun shall rise.